All right, here we go. Shalom and welcome. All right, here we go. This should be the conclusion, we hope, to our Are We Gods? Are we really made? How are we made? What is this telepathic energy? What are all these things? And we have answers, I believe, not only from the scriptures, but from actual documents, right? So these documents concur of what we are being told in the scriptures, such as if you have faith to walk on the water, if you have faith the grain of a mustard seed, then you shall move mountains. So all these things become a very, very intricate part of believing, right? And because I believe we've been dummied down, if you will, with fluoride water and television and movies that are telling us what we're going to be, how we're going to be, right? For instance, Superman is Superman. He has this great thing from the sun. As long as he's in the sun, he's Superman. But yet somehow they killed him, right? Wolverine. All these invincible people now suddenly are dying in movies. The Marvel Endgame, right? All these, what are they telling us? What's coming? That no matter how great you think you are, what kind of a superhero, we can still get you, right? That's the kind of motive, the propaganda I'm reading behind it. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it is just a fairy tale movie. But as what we see from the 50s, 60s, 70s, the beautiful Marilyn Monroe, and everybody loved blondes, and everybody sucked blondes, and everybody thought that, and then we've gone to different ones, right? So whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not, that what we see, what's presented to us on television and other things is called programming for a reason. They're doing this to get us to do and make our hologram, our world, if you will, what they want it to be. And within those constraints, what happens? We have limitations, right? They tell us our limitations, but yet we see people that can lift trucks, cars, all kinds of things that they shouldn't be able to, but yet they do, can, and have. So with all that being said, our scriptures that we went over before tell us, but I say, I made you as a god to Pharaoh, right? And truly, if you see what he did with his staff, with a piece of wood, turning water into blood, all these things, we know it was Yahweh, but Moshe was the man that did it. And I would submit that he wants us to do the very exact same things today, right? He wants us to do these very exact same things today. He wants us to go and show the world that he is still Yahweh, and he still has children that will still put a whooping down, if you will, right? That he's still on the throne, and his children still have the power he sent us to have. So with all that being said, let's go. Consciousness in perspective, having ascertained that human consciousness is able to separate from physical reality and interact with other intelligence in other dimensions within the universe, and that it is both eternal and destined for ultimate return to the absolute. We are faced with a question. So what happens then? Since memory is a function of consciousness and therefore enjoys the same eternal character as the consciousness, which accounts for its existence, it must be admitted that when consciousness returns to the absolute, it brings with it all the memories it has accompanied. It is accumulated through experience in reality. So in other words, everything, every thought, everything you've done comes back to the Creator, just like we see in judgment, right? A lot of people say this is nonsense. But we see this clearly. What the Bible says is what they're saying. as well. Everything you say, every idle word, all these things that we're told we're going to be judged for, that the world or the church so-called tells us we ain't got to worry about. It's all washed away. We do what we want. We live how we want. But this is saying all that is going to go. So garbage in, garbage out, right? If you put garbage in, all that garbage you're going to carry back to the Creator. And whether we know it, like it, or whatever we're bringing back is what's going to be there, right? Some people say sin bags. You can't make it with sin bags. You can't go to heaven with sin bags. You're not going to float up with sin bags, right? That's kind of their illusion of what they put together. But it kind of makes sense to a point that if you have all this sin and you bring all that sin to judgment, there's going to be a problem. The return of consciousness to the absolute does not imply that extinction of the separate. So again, it's not saying that you're just poof gone away like a lot of people say. It's saying that you're bringing all your reality to what I would say they probably know is the Creator, Yahweh. It's all going back, everything that you've done. And that's some drastic stuff, right? So that's why we want to do the best we can right now. Rather, it suggests a differentiated consciousness, which merges with the participants in the universe consciousness and infinity of the absolute without losing the separate identity. So just like the scripture says, you're going to be known as you're known, right? You're going to be known as you're known. So that all goes right along with what we're putting together, what we're reading here. And again, this ain't what I put together. This is their analysis. This is their study. But they're saying whatever you've learned is going to go back to the Creator, or what they use, the absolute. And everything you've said, done, everything that's in your noggin, if you will, everything that's in your knowledge. But think about that. If you think about that from a biblical, just like it says, to be in the hands of Yahweh is a terrible thing. To be, just knowing, and we can say we're righteous as righteous can be, but just knowing what we did today, knowing what we did yesterday, knowing we might want to live, we're striving to be righteous, right? Make no doubt about it. I am. I don't know what, but I am trying to hit the mark daily. And the more I learn, the more I try to hit that mark. Whether it's attitude, your voice, whatever, everything you should be picking up. As a child, you're learning, right? And now we went from kindergarten, I hope, into first, second, third grade. We're getting some knowledge. We're getting there. And all this that we've learned is going to be held accountable according to this, just as well as the Bible. So that's where they both, I see, match up perfectly, because they're saying, and how do they know this? Well, obviously, when this guy or girl or whoever it was are doing these tests, these are real human beings. These ain't lab rats. These are real people that they are doing and have done these things with, right? So yes, we're actually live now on YouTube. I'm just going to let it run on that. And in other words, it retains the power to perceive, but loses the power of will or choice. In exchange, however, this consciousness participates in the all-knowing infinite continuum of consciousness, which is characteristic of an energy in the ever-present. So they're admitting, from what I gather, there's a forevermore. There is a continuum. There is something. How do they know that? Well, if they've killed people and brought them back, then, no telling what all they've done here. You know what I'm saying? We don't get all that down here, which we probably wouldn't even want to read it if we did, but we kind of get the consensus of what they're saying is true, because what we find in scriptures is true. Make sense? So where are we? Consequently, it is accurate to observe that when a person experiences the out-of-body state, he is in fact projecting that eternal spark of consciousness and memory, which constitutes the ultimate source of his identity, to let it play in and learn from dimensions both inside and outside the time-space world, in which his physical component currently enjoys a short period of reality. So, could it be? Now, I'm just going to put this is spitballing to the finest, right? This is not so-called a biblical doctrine or this doctrine, just spitballing. Could it be that when we dream, we are projecting this hologram, this consciousness of what we want our world to be? Whether we like that or not, right? Whether you like your ex or you're this or you're that or whatever, but to continue dreaming about them, that's your choice. That's usually something that comes into you. Now, what you have to do with that is what? Sometimes pray, sometimes this, sometimes let it go, right? But all this coming into is something that's usually come from. Does that make sense? Am I starting to sound like Confucius, right? But whatever all this stuff we picked up is what we have to deal with. Even something when you was a child, maybe in the back of your subconscious and you have a dream or you have a thought or you have this about it, you've blown it away. You don't care, so you think, but your mind, you really do, right? I think we all know that concept. Something that's happened way back when, you really don't care, really don't bother you, but you know it really does bother you. So all this goes into play. And what does that matter biblically? Well, it matters on how people think and react and live, right? If you're raised in a Pentecostal church, as I was, then you're going to be a product of that. You're going to hell because of this, and you're going to blah, blah, and everything that you parrot out of yourself is something that you picked up. Now you have to start discerning of what's right, what's not, what works, what doesn't, and everything's fitting in its own place, right? Sometimes if you get caught in the LGBT parade, you might just need to scream, repent, right? It might be the best thing for you, but in most cases, everything, line by line, precept by precept. So anyway, going forward here, the gateway method. We're putting all this together of learning what they did and what we have in black and white and what the Bible says. So what I'm trying to compare and put together is what the Bible says is faith is essentially some part of this, right? What the Bible says is the Ruach, or your spirit and your soul, is eternal. Whether we like it or not, whether we see it or not, whether we agree with it or not, his ways are not our ways. But the way I see it, just like this is saying, you're eternal. He made Adam to live forever. He didn't make Adam to leave. And whether we like it or not, or anybody else does, Yahweh's going to get his way. If Yahweh said it, it's going to be so. And it is so. And it's never going to change, right? So he made Adam to live forever. Adam messed up. Cost him his life. But guess what? Here's Yeshua. So essentially, it's going to take some doing. It's going to take some rearranging. It's going to take some doing. But in the end, guess what? Adam's going to live forever, isn't he? One way or the other, Adam's still going to live forever. Same thing with Eve. Everybody that was born of Adam, the seed, the Abraham, the way I see it and the way this is presenting to us, are eternal. Yahweh does not change. He doesn't change whether we sin or whether we don't sin. So let's go on. Having put the gateway experience in context by postulating the structure outline of how and why it seems to work, and having shown what is designed to achieve, the time has come to examine the specific techniques which comprise the gateway training process. And folks, again, I don't know how or where or what. I mean, obviously some of these was probably soldiers and things of that matter. We don't probably even want to know again of how they come up with this or how many people they killed to get to know one to come back and, anyway. These techniques are designed to enable the use of the gateway tapes to manipulate the high energy states which one can achieve if the user continues to work with the tapes over a period of time. The amount of time required to reach advanced energy states and to fully exploit the techniques varies with the individual. The sensitivity of his nervous system, his general state of mind, and the extent to which he may have previously developed in related techniques such as transcendental meditation, and are all factors affecting the speed at which he may expect to progress. So what I would submit to you is what we see, the yoga and the other things of what they're using and what people are doing, it is a form of this. It's not a divine form. It's not the right form. We're told to pray and meditate, right? We're not told to follow other gods, put up a little Buddha statue and do all this stuff, right? But to actually do what the scripture says. So anything out of this can start being a divination or a familiar spirit. So we can contact, and I think if you've been around or studied any of this, there are people that are contacting familiar spirits. It's not their parent, it's not their aunt, it's a familiar spirit, right? Or demon. So anyway, let's go on. The gateway process begins by teaching the individual participant to isolate extraneous concerns. So the same thing that what we are supposed to do in praying and meditation. We are not thinking about our own self. We're not thinking about you stubbed your toe. You're thinking about, hey, Sister Paula has a problem, and I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to try to get a hold of the throne room, if you will. I'm going to try to get a hold of the Creator to petition him for Paula. So it works out, right? But if you're thinking of other things, it don't matter if it's a tree. You know, if you start thinking of tree hugging and all that kind of stuff, then it's going to go in a different direction. But it doesn't mean this doesn't work. It's amazing people believe satanic, and they're worried about satanic, and they're worried about what they do, but yet it says greater is he that is in me than he is in the world. So, but you know, with all that being said, we do have to be careful, because a lot of them people have, you know, their faith of what they're doing, and it works, and they've seen it work, as opposed to a lot of the so-called church method. If it goes beyond prayer, they're lost. I'm just being honest, you know. His mind and body strive to achieve a state of resonance through utterance of a single tone. Now, I think if you've ever been to Pentecostal church, you know this utterance. These are biblical things that, and it has to be biblical, it has to be right. You know what I'm saying? Twisting and turning, making something a babble as opposed to a language is a different thing, if that makes sense. Or am I getting too deep? Okay, so protracted humming sound that sets up a feeling of vibration, particularly in the head. He engages in this resonant tuning, as it is called, by humming along with the chorus of such sounds that are contained on the gateway tape. Following this, the participant is exposed to the gateway affirmation and is encouraged to repeat it to himself as he hears it repeated on the tape. Now, wouldn't it be amazing that why he says not to chant, not to pray like they do, not to do the things they do? Because obviously, to me, what comes to mind is they're imitating, they're chanting, they're just redoing what they hear. Right. The ohms, the frequencies. So, it'd be awesome if we could find these tapes, I guess, maybe. I don't know if we want to watch them or not, but might drive us all mad. But, it would be awesome to know what was on these tapes. If we could find these tapes, this would probably show a bunch as well, right? And I do believe that they're probably putting these same frequencies. Have you ever seen Batman? And I know we're just going everywhere today, but Batman, where Jim Carrey is the Joker, and they put the thing on the forehead and it's sucking up everybody's memory or their thoughts and all those things. Some of these things we just kind of play off as science fiction, but if they're having these things back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, what are they really doing? That's my question. What's really going on today in a bunker or basement somewhere, right? Is that something that, yeah, yes. I mean, some of these things you have to be careful. You know, some of these things we have to be very careful with even coming into. And if you're not really knowledgeable, you're not really biblically sound, I don't recommend a lot of this for anybody, especially somebody goes to Sunday church type stuff, or, you know, if you're not really know the Ruach and really grounded. And I would say that, you know, because some of these things are rough and can lead to horrific things. So anyway, after that, he exposed to the first time to the hemisync sound frequencies, and is encouraged to focus on the development or perception of the application for those feelings which accompany the synchronization of brain waves that results. Now, I'll have you in mind, like we went over before, if you didn't watch the other two, that they are actually monitoring the frequencies of the brain waves. These people are hooked up, so they're watching your brain waves as they're doing this. This ain't just like we're doing something in the basement and see what happens. This is actual science, computers, equipment, machinery, probably big as most people's houses. Have you ever seen these experimental labs and things like that? They're usually humongous, right? Next comes the technique of progressive and physical relaxation, while the hemisync frequencies are expanded to include additional forms of pink and white noise designed to put the physical body at the virtual threshold of sleep, as well as to calm the left hemisphere of the mind, while raising the right hemisphere to a state of heightened attentiveness. So we see what's going on. Once all of this is achieved, the participant, I should just put guinea pig, right? The participant is invited to envisage creation of an energy balloon comprised of an energy flow beginning at the center of the top of the head and extending down all the direction to the feet. The energy involved in this flow then proceeds up through the body and back out into the balloon pattern again. The energy balloon, which sets up a pattern very reminiscent of the cosmic egg. Oh, here we go with that egg again. Discussed earlier, not only enhances bodily energy flow. So could this possibly be, just thinking out loud here, could this possibly be the remedy of what a lot of people are saying for diseases? You know, I've heard people who have spoken tongues, went to the hospital, got tested, and physically their body healed because of that. I've heard that. So could this be another something along that? Why they're doing this, the body enhances and actually internally, cellular level, blood heals itself. Just thinking out loud, which sets up a pattern very where are we at? Not only enhances bodily energy flow and encourages early achievement of a suitable resonant state, but is also designed to provide protection against conscious entities possessing lower energy levels, which the participant might encounter in the event that he achieves an out-of-body state. It serves as a precautionary purpose in the unlikely event that the participant's first out-of-body experience involves direct projection outside the terrestrial sphere. So this guy's going to see ET and he's going to freak out, right? What is ET doing here? I thought this was only a movie. So, advanced techniques. Having reached the focus 10, focus, Focus, Stephanie, focus, right? The participant is now ready to endeavor to achieve a state of sufficiency, expanded awareness to begin actual interacting with dimensions beyond those associated with the experimental physical reality. This state is called focus 12. Hey, if we get to 24, we do something. And involves conscious efforts of this part by additional forms of pink and white noise. So basically, the more you can drown out, is what I'm taking here. The more you can drown out the pink and white, the more you can drown out what's happening around you and focus on your achievement, right? Say, I want to see the firmament. I believe the firmament is sapphire. I believe the firmament is blue. And the more that I focus on that, the more I can achieve, the more I will see that. And then once I come out to the reality of that, then my reality will now be, is it, right? You will physically, mentally, spiritually see this, and then you will know. Now, if anybody believes you're not, that ain't got nothing to do with it, but you will know this is what I see, right? I spiritually, physically, mentally, my mind is recording this, right? Enter the sound stream being directed into the ears from the gateway tape. Once the participant has achieved this state of greatly expanded awareness, he is ready to begin employing a series of specific techniques or tools, as the Monroe Institute characterizes them, which to enable him to manipulate his newly found expanded awareness to obtain practical, useful feedback of value for promoting self-discovery and personal growth. The specific techniques involved are described individually below. There is no spoon. To bend the spoon, there is no spoon, right? I think they put a lot in these movies that are really what they found out. And they do it as kind of like a hijink thing. You know, is anybody out there listening? Is anybody going to get it? And few do. But they're always looking for people, I believe. So, you know, with all that being said, all kinds of noise machines out there. So lots of people are into that. Yes, I mean, there's all kinds of plasma tubes and different machines and frequencies, and some are healing and, you know, all kinds of things. Problem solving. This technique involves identifying fundamental problems, which are the individual wishes to see solved, filling his expanded awareness with his perception of these problems, and then projecting them out into the universe. In this way, the individual enlists the assistance of what Monroe Institute calls his higher self. In other words, his expanded conscious to interact with the universe or the universal hologram to obtain the information required to solve the problem. This approach may be used to solve personal difficulties, technical problems in the realm of physics, mathematics, etc., etc., practical administrative problems, and so on. Responses to the problem-solving technique may be received almost immediately, but often they come based on developing intuition over the next 2 or 3 days. Frequently, the response comes in with the form of a sudden holistic perception in which the individual suddenly finds that he simply knows the answer in all of its ramifications. I think we get that, right? We get something we thought on, we think about it, and all of a sudden, bam, it's there. You know that's your answer, right? You just know that's the way it should be. And completely in context, sometimes without even being able to put his newly found perception into words, or at least initially, right? And I think this again goes biblically along with a lot. You read something, you figure it out, you say a prayer, and boom, your prayer's answered, right? You know this. But the problem is with this and all other things, who told you? Because you always have to figure out what they ain't putting in here is there's the demonic and then there's the heavenly, right? So there's the angelic and the fallen. So whether they're talking to this one or that, and I'm sure they probably got many things that they've talked to or tried to talk to both sides. Anyway, let's go on. In some cases, the response may even arrive in the form of a visual symbol, which the individual will see, like a pyramid. With this mind, while he is in the focus 12 state, and which he will have to interpret after he returns to normal consciousness. Now, the big thing that we see with people and men in general, right? What do we need this answer for, and what it's going to do with us? And this is where I think the difference between the right answer and the right reason, as opposed to, you know, Harry Potter type stuff, right? It's, am I doing it? Am I seeking Yahweh for me or for the health or for the help of another? Or am I seeking it because I want a new Ferrari and a new yacht, right? If I get the lottery number and I play the, well, that's wrong anyway, right? Isn't that gambling? Is that for the betting? Is that kind of wrong across the board? So if they're using this properly, or if we're using it properly, then it works properly. But just like most other things, most men corrupt, right? The Bible itself, how many people corrupted it and made it into what they say it says instead of rightly dividing? Going on. The technique involves use of the consciousness to achieve the desired objectives in the physical, emotional, and intellectual sphere. It involves concentration on the desired objective while in a focus 12 state. Extension of the extension of the individual's perception of that objective into the world expanding consciousness and its projection into the universe with the intention that the desired objective is already a matter established achievement, which is designed to be realized within the time frame specified, that sharks will not attack you if you use the right frequency. Oh, I threw that in there. This particular methodology, but actually on that note, while I'm there, sharks do carry a frequency, and there is a thing called shark away that goes through their nose or through their front part there, however you want to call it. I know somebody technical out there, but that frequency will keep them away and keep you from actually being bit. They can get close, but about the 2-foot mark, that frequency will pull them away. Okay, so let's go on. The particular methodology is based on the belief that the thought patterns generated by our consciousness in a state of expanded awareness create holograms, which represent the situation we desire to bring about, and in doing so, establish the basis for actual realization of that goal. Once the thought-generated hologram sought after objective is established in the universe, it becomes an aspect of reality which interacts with the universal hologram to bring about the desired objective, which might not, under other circumstances, ever occur. That's amazing, right? So what I'm taking from this is your thought, okay, your thought is, if I get in the water, I'm going to get attacked by a shark. Is that predestined? Is that something that you nab by? Is that something that you are prophesying? Is that something you know is going to happen? Or is it something you're projecting to happen? Right? That's what it's saying, is that it may have never happened, may never ever occur, but if you're projecting that, then that is what your hologram, that is what you're putting out there. So in a sense, if you jump in the water, you're projecting to Mr. Sharky Shark to come bite me. You're ringing the dinner table. You're saying, hey, this is what I perceive. So he has to bite you, right? So I'm just saying. But where the other perceives and puts a frequency of, if a shark ever bites me, I'm going to break his nose. Shark ain't got a nose. But you know what I'm saying? If a shark comes within the vicinity of me and I have something to do about it, he's going to be shark kebab, right? So you see the different perceptives. Now, it'd be awesome to know the people that got attacked by sharks. How many they was afraid of sharks? Or they was told, some of these surfers was told not to go out. And on the same day, they got shark bit. So was that a perceptive something put in there that attracted that or made that? If we're going to talk faith, we can't just talk faith in the Bible, right? Reality is reality. So if we're going to speak faith and say, well, I can do all things, well, that's got to go beyond the realm of Sunday. It's got to go beyond the realm of Sabbath. It's got to go. So essentially what we're saying, or what the Bible's saying, is if you speak life or death, that's going to happen. And I think we're not taught that correctly, because we speak a lot of death. Or we say, you ever told your children or told somebody, you do that, you'd get killed. You do that, it could kill you. Maybe we should say, just don't do that. Maybe, the statistics on all these things, but it would be very interesting, I think, to see how many people ate pork chops and went swimming and got, what made the shark, because not everybody gets attacked by a shark. But maybe in your subconscious, maybe that would happen if you got in the water. Or is it something you're just perceiving? We're getting too deep here, I know. Probably going to go all over the board, right? So, right. So I'm not going into the ocean. But see, that would be a great thing here. Because if you prayed and meditated and then got in the ocean and you came out and you didn't get shark bit, then that would prove that faith and this works, right? You just perceive it. All right, let's go on. This particular methodology is based on the belief, we've already went through this, right? In other words, the technique of patterning recognize the fact that the sense conscious is the source of all reality. This is pretty important things, I believe, even to non-believers, the people that, they say they don't believe the Bible, they don't believe this, but when you put this into action, it works. Does it not? I think we see this. Our thoughts have the power to influence the developmental reality in time space as it applies to us, if those thoughts can be projected with adequate intensity. However, the more complicated the objective sought, and the more radically, the more it departs from our current reality. So what I'm laughing at is I'm seeing land shark. You ever seen that? Land shark, the shark comes out of the water. So, but what happens here, somebody had some kind of imagination to dream that up too. But what we have to see is what's going on and what's happening, right? Right. So what we have to do is see that reality and what is reality and what is going to be reality, right? It's the same thing, the concept of people that are trying to make it. They're trying to do the right thing. There's people that are trying to make heaven. We'll just put it like, in the layman's terms. I'm trying to make heaven. I'm trying to shun hell. They, in their minds, are doing what they know to do, right? But I met people that have prayed and said they knew there was more. They've been praying for more. So all that goes into the same thing. If they know there's more, they know there's more. Who can deny that? If you were sitting around thinking there's more to this, there's more to that, yes, we know there's more. Could we get from Genesis to Revelation and everything in between? We know it's there. We know it's got to be out there. We know, but again, I think we have to take some of these as meals, as bites, as morsels, because if we had it all, especially from what we've been learned and taught, we'd probably lose our minds once again, right? And the world pretty much thinks most believers are lunatics, right? Get it? Lunatics. So some people, the deeper things, but we're all made in his image, but that doesn't mean we're all the same. You know, a lot of people, especially churches and things of that nature, I think that's their downfall. They're all bricks. They're all the same. They're all the choir. We're not all the same. We are different and we are made different, and each individual can touch someone differently, right? I might not have the adequate speech that Professor Dr. Jackson has and be able to use that voice and do what he does, right? But at the same time, people that associate with the way I talk and the way that I do things may not be turned on with what he's doing, right? So we all have our individual paths to talk to people, and how we see fit, or how he sees fit, I should say, how the Ruach directs us, right? We can cut up and play and do all kinds of things, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we do need to have that foundation, right? We do need to know what it's coming from. But I don't think there's nothing wrong with dipping into a lot of these. Most churches, pastors would lose their mind over something like this and scold you and tar and feather you, and, you know, all these things for even trying to touch things like this or speak of them. But why can't we? If greater than he that is in me, that's in the world, then why can't I look at this? It's not witchcraft, so to speak, is it? It's something that's documented that I believe shows us something further into our Bible, something more that proving to me that you can move a mountain. Because how many people would truly, honestly, if you went to Sunday church tomorrow, how many Sunday churches would you go and they would scoff at you if you said you could move a mountain? Oh, well, it's written. They say they believe it. They say they this and that and the other, but yet they don't believe it, right? I mean, is it really a part of their belief system? So something's wrong either with what's written, it's been changed, the scribes, or something's wrong with our noggin, if you will, right? There's something that we don't know how to perceive or how to interact with the mountain. But we know in the end days, in the end times, all the mountains will be removed, right? So anyway, Monroe trainers caution against attempting to force the pace of this progress. And I think this is what we're learning. What I've learned, it's took 10 years probably. I mean, you get it, but you can't give a 5-year-old a fire hose and expect him to be happy, right? So you can't give somebody a fire hose of information and expect them to be able to take it. A little bit of water, a little bit of sip of water, maybe a little bit of water hose, maybe a squirt gun. But when you do too much in any aspect, right? And that's why I like to bring people to easy truth, right? But unfortunately, we don't know who's watching this. I mean, we do know who's watching it, but you don't know who's going to watch it in the future. So sometimes you have to put everything out there, and then they kind of have to take it and get back with you, if that makes sense, right? But you're not trying to drown somebody with a fire hose, because they're going to drown. You're going to hurt them worse than you're going to help them. And that's what I'm seeing. You know, the same thing with our training, our teaching, the same thing here, right? Monroe trainers caution against attempting to force the pace of this process, because the individual could succeed in dislocating his existing reality with drastic consequences. So my question is, how many lunatics, if I shouldn't even put it that, how many people have been locked away because of these tests? How many people, we see movies about this, right? That people have been locked away and the reality is no longer reality. They think they're a fallen angel. They think they're, they think they're, whoa, wow. Yeah. They think that there's something different. But as we see here, if they come out of the known reality and go into the spiritual reality, and they meet a terrestrial being, or they meet something, that their mind just ain't really ready to meet, then what's going to happen? And if they don't know how to deal with it, if they ain't grounded, if they don't know Bible, they don't even know what's going on, then that's going to separate the reality from reality, if that makes sense, right? So I think that we kind of go along here, that we kind of create our reality in the way we want to, you know. I think a lot of Sunday church creates a reality of the way they want it to be. They want everybody in the building saved, and maybe everybody out of the building's going to hell, but that's not a real clear reality. It's not even a truthing reality, I don't believe. But anyway, color breathing. The next technique is called color breathing, and is designed to use the expanded awareness and highly focused attentiveness associated with the focus 12 state to imagine various colors in a particular intense and vivid manner, so as to use them to resonate with, and in turn to activate the body's own energies. Fundamentally, in terms of practical application, it is healing techniques. There you go, right there. Healing techniques in which is designed to restore the body and to enhance its physical capabilities by balancing, revitalizing, and returning bodily energy flows. It is predicted on the principle that the body's electromagnetic field is capable of alternating its resonance patterns so as to entrain energy from the Earth's electrostatic field for its own use. So, isn't that very, very interesting? Let's see. For an 8-week course, this stuff is mainstream. It adds up to the spiritual battle ahead. Of course, I mean, I think they're being equipped more than we are. I mean, that's what I'm seeing is the higher up, and it tells us this. I don't know why we don't get it. The powers that be, the prince and power of the air, and a lot of times it's just, nobody even wants to listen to this, right? In church or assembly, or most people just, oh my goodness, that's just hogwash, they're just all wet. What's wrong with you talking about that? Or then they turn it on you and say it's witchcraft. So then you obviously can't speak of it, because what would you be? You know what I'm saying? But I think they are, we're not fighting against flesh, but we're fighting against principalities, just like it says. But they are using this to get with principalities and these demons, fallens, whatever they may be. Obviously, they're getting very equipped to, tear down the children of the Most High, to break us down. Why else is people so sick? Why else is something going, all these things that are going on, and you can't even talk about them. I mean, they threaten you quickly. They'll kick your channel. There ain't no freedom of speech. You think there's a freedom of speech on these? Then there's not, because they will quickly tell you, if you speak of this, if you talk of that, if you do this again, they give you 3 strikes, right? And after that, guess what you get? They'll delete your whole channel. It might have been years that, it don't matter how many videos you got, how many years you've been doing it, you get to lose your channel. And I guess if you wanted to, you could start all over again, right? But yet, these so-called elites, if you will, can put out anything and talk about this very thing and put on CNN. And it goes worldwide. But yet you do it with not in their pattern. Anyway, before we go all tangent and rangent on everything, but I do believe they're equipping the world and the people, and I do believe they're using those towers, those 5Gs and these frequencies to hurt, damage, destroy the body. Because as we see here, if you know how to repair it, well, you do the reverse of that frequency and make 666 frequency, as opposed to 712, 432, 236, whatever it may be, right? Then what is that going to do to you? Well, I don't know. The various colors that they use here, right? The various colors envisioned in the imagination as part of the techniques cue the mind as to which frequencies and what specific amplitudes are desired in connection with this entrailment and the subsequent alteration in bodily energy flow patterns. So again, they know obviously how to cure whatever, right? The color has the capacity to affect the human mind and is well known due to the color and the kinds of healing in the demonstrating fact. For example, application of the intense blue light to an area of physical turbulence. Tomb science leads to rapid and easily observable reduction in the swelling. Is that a tumor is what they're trying to say? Now we're going to have to go to school. 2 cents. Probably a tumor, right? Can you look that up? Anybody want to look that up? I'm thinking it's probably a tumor or something. Leads to relatively rapid, easily observable reduction in the swelling, while red and the lesser extent yellow have quite the opposite effect. However, in the hemisync application of the technique, external light sources are not involved, but rather the mind is the sole agent of the healing. So that would be another whole study to try to dig into to find out about this, right? The kinds of healing that would come from. Readiness, activity marked especially by congestion of the sex organs. Really? Wow. Leads to relatively rapid healing. Wow. So, prostate cancer or something like that, maybe? Now let's go on before we get too down the rabbit hole. But I would like to review this again. Thank you. I would like to go over some of these and see if we can't find out a little bit more in tune, maybe later on when we do something else. But let's go on. The energy bar tool. Is that like one of them little energy bars that you eat and it tastes like chocolate and peanut butter? Magic wands and enchanted scepters. Hey, here we go. Now we're on the Harry Potter story. Magic wands and enchanted scepters have been part of the folklore and occult practices of many cultures. The scepter, staffs, and maces carried by monarchs and high priests alike occur with such frequency in the history of bygone eras as to suggest that at the very least these items are aspects of some type of symbol which the human mind seems to appreciate, perhaps quite subliminally. Now, I was thinking here of what Moses carried. He carried a staff, right? A lot of the patriarchs carried a staff, and even so Aaron's staff bloomed. So has that got something to do with any of it? In any case, the energy bar tool technique involves invasing a small, intensely pulsating dot of light, which the participant charges in the imagination with enormous energy until it is virtually pulsating. The participant then extrudes the dot into the shape of a sparkling, vibrating cylinder of energy, when he then uses to change the force from the universe to settled parts of his body for purpose of healing and revitalization. So, was this used? Because we know, if we read the story of Moshe, right? Moshe came to the water. He came to the Red Sea. And remember what Yahweh told him? He said, "Why are you crying to me?" Is what he said, right? If you look it up, Yahweh told Moses when he came to the sea, "Why are you crying to me?" Basically, what I get is, you should have known. You had your staff. You've seen all these things. Part the Red Sea and walk across it. So you seem like, I mean, we grow, but it seems like even at some level, we don't realize the power that we possess. You know what I'm saying? The power that we have within us. But that makes sense. So when he came to the sea, right, the counterfeit of it. So, and I think that's what we see with even with the magicians, and what we see with Harry Potter, with all these little tools. They're using what should be used correctly, but they're using it in an evil way. They're using it in a way, and it still sometimes works. As we see, it ain't like it's, oh, that's a bunch of baloney sauce, right? Because when they threw down their staffs, it's written that they became snakes as well, but his devoured theirs. So, but nonetheless, their staffs, their amulets, whatever they was using, became snakes as well, right? So there is power on both sides. It's just the point of which power are we going to use? Which one? And sadly, most of us are really, really, really persuaded to the TV, fantasy, Disneyland, Harry Potter, all these shows with all these weird things in them, that it catches attention. Why does that catch the attention of anybody else, right? Why does that catch the attention of people, children? Well, they know it does. So with all that being said, let's go on. Remote viewing. In addition, the energy bar tool is used as a portal for initiating a follow-on technique called remote viewing. In this context, the participant turns his bar of energy into a whirling vortex through which he sends his imagination in search of new and illuminating insights. And I think you've probably seen this in different commercials and different shows. Didn't Wonder Woman even do that? She spun around and made somewhat of a vortex, and she became Wonder Woman, right? So how many times have we seen these men and women spin around and make like a vortex, and they become superhuman, if you will? They become whatever. The apparent purpose of the symbolism involved in the vortex seems to be cue to the subconscious and convey to the instructions as to what the participant wishes to do. But in terms of nonverbal symbols, which the right hemisphere of the mind is capable of understanding. Right? Right? You have all these people doing these things, and I mean, He-Man, he wasn't really a vortex, but he put his hand in the air and said he had what? He had the power. I mean, all these things that we see is we're telling our mind that we have something, right? I mean, that's what I get. Why does Superman have to change in the phone book to be either he's Superman or he ain't, right? I mean, what's the deal with the suit? He takes his suit off, but that's an empowerment that we see. And how many kids have played that? How many women have turned into Wonder Woman? How many men have turned into Superman? How many? That goes in our mind, and we bring that out, right? Anyway, living body map. This technique provides application of the energy bar tool as that means of healing specific areas or systems of the human body. The configuration of the participant's body is imagined, and then the various major systems, such as the nervous system and circulatory systems, are advised in appropriate colors within the confines of the outline being held in imagination. The energy bar tool is then applied to energizing, balancing, and healing in whatever manner of the participant desires. So could we use so-called energy bar of this to heal? Because we see, he says all this happens through what? I'm not talking about the dark side. I'm talking about the right side, the light side, which is a very interesting thing that we'll go over later too. But anyway, to use it properly and use it rightly, could this be a healing tool? All the things, I just think we're so limited. We're just so limited as believers, not because we are limited, so to speak. We're limited because we don't get all this, right? We don't get taught this. Just like it says, teach them when they're young. I mean, who would go apart from this? If you knew from a young age, here's your staff, and this is a healing tool, this is a vortex tool, this is, this is powerful things. Aaron, don't play with it. Don't touch the ark. Don't do don't taste, don't touch the unclean thing. If we knew these things, what kind of a power force would anything on this earth, would we be afraid of anything? Would any, we would be like, hand me my staff. I mean, anything comes to us, hand me my staff, and not because of us particularly, but because Yahweh made us that way. And I think that's another disconnect. He made us the way he made us, and we shouldn't apologize for that. People are trying to apologize because they got this, that, and the other, and, because they're different. Don't apologize. If you can heal people, heal them. Don't let somebody stop you from healing somebody because they're in a church or something. Right. Like that, what was that movie? Yeah. Push clouds away and, part the clouds and part the sky. And hey, maybe you could part the chemtrails. Did I say that? The configuration of the participant's body is imagined, and then various major systems, such as the nervous and circulatory systems, are, they're showing us right here, of what we should be doing, I believe. The energy bar tool is then applied to energizing, balancing, and healing in whatever manner the participant desires. In the process, the participant visualizes various streams of colored energy flowing out of the tool into the organ system or the area upon which the revitalizing or healing application is being made. Since colors are the result of differing wavelengths of light, which is to say energy at various frequencies, this technique operates on the assumption that as the human body is composed of energy, it can be vitalized and healed through the addictive application of additional energy, provided that the energy is applied in the appropriate form. So say my light bulb is a 40-watt light bulb, but I'm only getting 20 volts. Well, then I need 20 more volts for my light bulb to work correctly. Same thing, if your body is clogged because of whatever, then if you get the right energy, the right combination, then your body can this be a form? Is this a form of healing? Is this biblically a form of healing? Was this another disconnect? Because he said all these things and more. And when you go to church, it's like they don't believe that either. He said, and I don't know anybody that's done all those things. You might see somebody that's healed somebody. You might see people that's prayed for people, but I've never seen, you've seen some of these magicians claim to walk on water, right? So is that the limitation, or is it no limitation? Is it faith does it? The energy does it? You believe it, it happens? Or is it just only for believers? Questions, right? Questions. All right, travel into the past. Now, some of y'all need to stay out of the past, right? But anyway, all the preceding techniques are conducted at the level of expanded awareness, known as Focus 12. So if we got a volunteer that wants to go to Focus 12, Steve or anybody want to volunteer here, and we're going to try to get to Focus 12 or 14. However, the technique of time travel into the past involves further expansion of the consciousness through the inclusion of additional levels of sound on the HemiSync tapes. Some of the sound is probably merely an intensification of the basic HemiSync frequencies, being designed to further modify brainwave frequency and amplitude. Other aspects of the added sound patterns appear to be designed to provide subtle, almost subliminal suggestions to the mind as to what is desired by way of further expanded consciousness so as to support the verbal suggestions and instructions also contained on the tape. Even the instructions are highly symbolic, with time being visualized as a huge wheel in the universe with various spokes, of each which gives access to a different part of the participant's past. Focus 15, I knew we was going to get there. Yes, riding across the water. It can be done, right? Focus 15 is a very advanced state and is extremely difficult to achieve. Probably less than 5% of all participants in any given gateway experience actually fully achieve the Focus 15 state during the course of the approximately 7 days of training. So it only takes 7 days. All we need is 7 days. We can put this together. We get our staff. And what a world it would be, right? Nonetheless, Monroe Institute trainers affirm that with enough practice, eventually Focus 15 can be achieved. They also state that not only the individual's past history is available for examination by one who has achieved Focus 15, but other aspects of the past with which the individual himself has had no connection may also be accessed. Now that sounds like that could be into some witchcraft stuff, because we probably shouldn't be digging in other people's past, and I probably don't want to know your past, probably don't want to know mine, right? So that's probably not an area that, if you can't change it, then what does it matter? But they're saying it's being done, right? It has been done. The future. Now here we go. The future. The last and most advanced of all. Right. They want you to have all this, get out of your mind experience, and then all these things. That don't help a whole lot of people either. I know a lot of different vets and everything, and they drown their sorrows with things that they should not, and it don't help them. It might drown their sorrows, so to speak, but it usually makes it worse. Anyway, a lot of that stuff is just, erasing those memories and putting in. There's been movies about that too. Wasn't it Eraser, where you can go back and you can erase your memories and put in good memories and put in good things and things like that. But just like we see in the movies, usually the mind kind of, doesn't do so well with that, probably. Yeah. That's just some, I don't know what you would even call that. But anyway, the last and most advanced of all the focus states associated with the Gateway Training Program involves movement outside of the boundaries of time, space, and in Focus 15, but with attention to discovering the future rather than the past. The individual who has achieved this state has reached a truly advanced level. Except in unusual circumstances, it is probably not attainable except by those who have conditioned themselves through long application of meditation. Meditation. Or by those who have practiced long and hard through use of the HemiSync tapes for a period of months, if not years. Well, I hope a lot of these people wasn't doing this for years, but they're probably using them as psychics and for, what I'm saying? Now, with all that being said, I don't think the enemy, the problem with demons and demonics and fallen, they know the past, but obviously they don't know the future. And this is probably what they're trying to tap into. we can, I believe, we know the future. And I know people fell their chair with that, but we do know the future. Revelations, different things. We know what the Bible says is going to happen in the future. Whether it's our future, someone else's future, it's all going to be our future. But you know what I'm saying? One way or the other, we know what's going to happen on certain aspects. We don't know exactly the way everything's going to happen, right? I don't think they know, because it would be horrific. I mean, if the enemy knew and if people knew, then they could stop you. You know what I'm saying? If say I go to MD Anderson and I go pray for Lizzie Mushy, and Lizzie Mushy gets healed of cancer. Well, if you can see that, then wouldn't you stop that? If you knew that I was going to go there and that the end result was her being healed, then somehow, some way, it would be stopped. So it becomes one of the movies of like time travelers, of they're going to cut you off at the pass. You're going to, you know what I'm saying? One way or another, they're going to stop you before you get to Houston. They're going to stop your car. They're going to, you know, so I don't think the enemy or demonics know the future, or, you know, more than what we can read, what we see. And I don't know if they can even comprehend that on that level in their fallen state. And I say that because if you knew Revelations, you know, I'd be backing it up. I mean, I wouldn't be pushing the mark of the beast. I wouldn't be pushing one world. I'd be doing the opposite if it was me. Maybe that's just maybe the way I think. But if you knew good and well that your ending was coming at these pivotal moments, wouldn't you be like, let's not do that one world church. Let's not do one world. Why would you be, unless he's just that naive and ignorant? You know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, it don't add up to me. Right. Right. Yes. Yes, I believe we can obtain, I believe his prophets know. I mean, that's scripture, that Yahweh does nothing unless he informs his prophets. So I think he warns us through scripture and through prophets of what's coming. But that's for those who are of the body, or those who need to be of the body, or those that he's warning of the body. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to put limitation of somebody that's you know, just out there doing whatever. He still may warn them, as we see in scripture. Go to Nineveh and tell them to repent. Well, you know, go to New Orleans, tell them to repent. Well, they may not repent, but that's not my problem, right? That's not my problem. I did what I was supposed to do. Okay, so let's go on. The out of body movement. Right, exactly. That's an awesome one. If they knew, they would have never crucified him, right? The demons, and we see demons was there. They had legions. They had, you know, I think some of these Pharisees obviously had demonic ways. You know, they brought in their ways so much that I believe they was following other ways, other forms, even to the form of Rome, and you know, kind of beaten to their Caesar's tune somewhat to be anyway. But yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. They would have never crucified if they, and I think that's what we see when he brought him to the top. How did he see the whole world unless it's flat? There's a good one. How did he see? It brought him to the highest mountain, to a high mountaintop, and showed him all the kingdoms of the earth, right? So he was testing him. He did not know the future. He didn't even know that he was truly the Mashiach, because if he did, right, and he didn't really, he just told him it's written. So, I mean, obviously there was something going on there that he was trying to figure out that he couldn't figure out. And when it didn't go his way, then what happened? Then he had him crucified, because he, you know, well, he didn't have him, you know, he willingly went to it, but they should have, yeah, I mean, the demonics and demons and everything involved should have been pulling him away from that stake and taking him, and stoning Barabbas and dragging him out and three other guys if they would have known what was happening. So yeah, I think that's a very good proof of they didn't know the future. They didn't see what was happening. They was just as blind, if not blinder than the Pharisees, which is, Anyway, the out-of-body movement, this remarkable phenomenon, has been saved for discussion in detail until last, because you can't handle the truth. Oh, because of the interest in which it occasions and special circumstances involved in its attainment. Monroe Institute stresses that the Gateway, I just find it funny that Gateway, wasn't that the first computer that he made was called Gateway? Gateway program was not established solely for the purpose of enabling participants to obtain the out-of-body state, nor does the program guarantee that most participants will succeed in doing it during the course of the training at the Institute. Only one tape out of the many which make up the Gateway experience is devoted to the techniques involved in the out-of-body movement. But you also got to understand, they're just as scared of this stuff as anybody else, especially at this time, right? You don't think they're going to let you go out of body, change things, fix things, rearrange things. This is some pretty tight-lid stuff, I imagine, right? Especially at this time. They don't want just anybody coming out of body, changing, rearranging, and doing stuff at this time. Basically, these techniques are merely designed to make it easier for the individual to achieve the out-of-body state. When his brain wave pattern and personal energy levels have reached a point that he is in apparent harmony with the surrounding electromagnetic environment, such as that he feels that he has reached the threshold where separation is possibly. To facilitate achieving the out-of-body state, Bob Monroe, the founder of the Monroe Institute, is quoted in a recent magazine article as saying that in order to assist the participant in particular hemisync tape concerned with that technique employs the beta signals of around 2877.3 cycles per second, since 30 to 40 cycles per second is considered to be the normal range for the beta brain wave signals, those associated with the wakeful state. So again, we have the ones that are associated with the wakeful and the ones that are a dream, REM type thing, right? It is apparent that the Monroe Institute is convinced that the same heightened state of brainwave frequency output, which promotes already altered states of consciousness, is also an important consideration in assisting in the achievement of the out-of-body states. The actual techniques employed for separating from the body involve such simple maneuvers as rolling out, lifting out, after the fashion of telephone pole, wherein the individual separates a rigid head first manner, such as he finds himself standing at the attention at the foot of his physical body and sliding out through either the end of his body. Sounds like what we heard just last week, wasn't it? So that's why Wonder Woman spun around so fast. She had to get but what about the what was it, 8.1 gigawatts? So a lot of these things, what we need is knowledge, right? But we see this has happened to other people, and they are making it happen not just randomly, but they are actually making it happen through a what you may consider scientific experiment, right? The role of the REM sleep. It is interesting to note that Bob Monroe informed the Gateway class that finished 7 May 1983 that as ex-trainer of his operating in Charlottesville, Virginia, found that he could guarantee the out-of-body movements, bringing participants down into a rapid eye movement state of sleep, then use the hemisync tape technique. This may well be a function of the fact that most, if not all people, reputedly going into an out-of-body state during REM sleep. REM sleep is the deepest possible level of ordinary sleep and involves complete disengagement of the body's motor contacts functions from the neck down and nearly complete suppression of consciousness in the left brain hemisphere. The effect, where are we at? Then lost it here. The effect, this is to put the body in a state of complete stillness so far as the skeletal muscle structure is concerned, thereby further promoting the state of deep rest needed to eliminate the bifunction echo. You ever heard of the echo? In addition, it leaves the right hemisphere of the brain free to respond to the instructions and suggestions contained on the gateway tape. However, use of the hemisync tapes at this point may be less a factor in actually achieving the out-of-body state than it is in a matter of focusing the brain enough so that the residential memory of having naturally achieved an out-of-body state is carried into waking state. Indeed, it may even be postulated that some dreams associated with deep levels of sleep are in fact functions of the same kind of altered consciousness involved in interaction with the universe that plays a role in all the focus 12, 15, I told you, and 21 states describing above. The difference between those states and the condition of the mind in REM sleep seems to be that the left hemisphere is almost totally disengaged in the latter experience, such that memory of what was achieved in the altered state of consciousness cannot usually be retrieved by conscious desire, because the left hemisphere has no knowledge of its existence or its location in the right hemisphere. Admittedly, some people can be trained to remember their REM state. You ever have a dream and you don't remember it, but you want to remember it, but you kind of remember it? Dreams through intense conditioning in the waking state, but even that may be a more function of establishing pathways in the right hemisphere, which the left hemisphere can access following re-entry into the wakeful state, than it is an addiction of any event. The three apparent conditions required for voluntary inducing an out-of-body state in the most individuals seems to be achievement of the state, profound quiet in the body such that the bifurcation echo fades and resonance at approximately 7 hertz. Back to 7 hertz is established. Synchronization of the two brain hemisphere wave patterns and subsequent stimulation of the right hemisphere of the mind to obtain a state of heightened alertness, which of course interferes with brain hemisphere synchronization, but not until a sufficient level of enhanced frequency range has first been established to help achieve the out-of-body state, right? Having very, very memorable dreams like they're really happening type thing. Information collection potential. The information potential associated with the out-of-body state seems to attract the most attention from the standpoint of developing practical applications for the gateway technique. Unfortunately, although the out-of-body state can apparently be achieved by many people without excessive expenditure of time or effort, the purpose to which it can be put are currently limited by the fact that although the individuals in that state may travel anywhere on an instantaneous basis in either the terrestrial or other spheres, information distortion in the former context remains a major concern. To date, according to one According to one of the trainers at Monroe Institute, numerous experiments have been conducted involving persons moving from one coast to other in an out-of-body state to read a series of 10 computer-generated numbers in a university laboratory. Although most have acquired enough of the digits to make clear that their conscience was present, none have ever succeeded in getting all 10 correct. This seems to be a function of the fact that physical reality in the presence is not only holographic influence, but also the individual encounter in the out-of-body state. There are also energy patterns left by people or events occurring at the same physical site being viewed, but from the past rather than from the present. In addition, since thoughts are the product of energy patterns and energy patterns are reality, it may also be possible that individual encounter thought forms while in the out-of-body state, which mingle with physical reality and are not easily differentiated. Finally, as Melissa, oh, there we go, Jaguar writes, there is another potential problem area in the sense that the holograms can be viewed. We got here. That is remote viewing. Right. That is to say, inside out or backwards just as well as they have been seen in proper perspective. Some of the distortions occurring may ultimately prove to be traceable to this cause, because in the out-of-body state, an individual may perceive the holographic energy patterns given off by people or things interacting in time-space reality in a somewhat distorted form. So, could this be that the body, the flesh, is still in the one spot, and what I presume they're saying is your energy, your soul, yourself can go to California and look at a piece of paper, read the piece of paper, right? That's what they're saying. You're here, but you go because you're saying, okay, when I go to sleep, when I meditate, when I do this, I'm going to San Diego, California, and I'm going to look at the sailboat. And the sailboat's name is Santa Monica. And on Santa Monica, I'm going to read the map. Now, at that point, whoever's standing there at that map can only be pointing at the map, which would determine, is this true or not? And especially if they turn a page or do something different, right? So at that point in time, you know, north, east, south, west, the compass is actually saying pure life, right? So all these things that we see is happening, right? So it shows that we are not just flesh, that we are a spirit. And to me, it proves that that spirit being can go well beyond what we physically can, what we physically think, right? Because we think we're told and we do what we're told. What was that old song? You do what they told you, right? You do what they told you. We are a product of we do what we're told and we think how we're told. And so we think only Superman can do this or only Wonder Woman can do that. Only this one can lift that. But physically, and this could be a dangerous thing for people that don't want other people to know that. And I think that's why we're so programmed so bad, because if we could do that, or if we can do that, or if you would do that, maybe I should say, what kind of world would that be, right? But also biblically, spiritually. Can we go deeper for just a minute? Biblically and spiritually, say I am here and doing this, but I want to be a part of the congregation of Elohim in Washington State, that above Oregon, and they're having a sing-off, they're having a thing. Could I spiritually be there this day with them? As my soul, as a spirit, could I be there? According to what they're saying, yes. So could I meditate, pray, and spiritually, not physically, but spiritually be there and then come back? And this is what Yochanan did, maybe. This is where we see him ascending to heaven. We know that, physically, it's kind of impossible to be alive and to see this. We see with Enoch, we see with all these ones that they're relating these things, and it's called a vision. So did they have this knowledge then that what we know as a vision was really, you know what I'm saying? Was that really something that they knew, or they had been taught, they had been told? That makes sense. For Yochanan, for them to Daniel, Isaiah, all these prophecies, do you think they're just writing stuff down, or do you think they physically seen that? I think they physically seen it. If you see something, I think that some of these prophets physically seen it, but they couldn't describe it, because how do you describe a nuclear weapon? How you describe a jet plane if you never, the Iron Dragons, things of this nature, right? A vision. Yeah, a vision, but could that vision be this? Could that vision be, Paul, was on Patmos, but I seen, you know what I'm saying? Could he be seeing? I mean, if Yahweh controls everything, and I wouldn't even think it'd have to be Yahweh, would be he is a part of this, obviously, but could he not send an angel to take his spirit and to guide him to this place and time in the future, and to say, write this down, no, seal this up, this is for, you see what I'm saying? Or did we go off track? Did we go too far again?
That's not off track at all. That's exactly what this whole document really is about.
Right. So they are, and I believe they're probably trying to use this, I think we see this in, and I hate to say it because, one time I was like, that's wacko too, but in The Simpsons. I mean, if you look at The Simpsons, they have Trump as being the president. They have Ivana being, I think, 2028. I mean, there's all kinds of things that they're putting that's futuristic.
2028, really?
Yes, she is 2028 president. Yeah. And surprisingly, a lot of these things, unless they're manipulating, which they probably are, but a lot of these things have come true, so there's a war, there's a lot of things going on that I believe that we need the knowledge of, we need to know, and at least what's happening. Because how can you fight against something? How can you even pray against something you don't know about? Oh, please stop. What do you do with it? And I'm not saying we all should become metalheads and meditate and put tinfoil hats on and all that. But, I'm just saying that knowing, I just think that we have so much potential and power and things that we probably should be telling these people, if we should even be telling them anything. But you know what? We should be explaining to them that they probably shouldn't be doing that, right? So let's go on. Belief system considerations. In 1967, Alexandra David Neal, the Lama Youngden, wrote a book entitled Secret Oral Techniques. Anybody going to buy this? Anybody got this? In Tibetan Buddhist sects, from which the following quote is taken. The tangible world is movement. Say the masters, not the collection of movement objects, but movement itself. There are no objects in movement. It is the movement which constitutes the objects which rather appear to us. They are nothing but movement. The movement is a continued and infinity rapid succession of flashes of energy. In Tibetan steel are shown all objects to our senses are phenomenon of weather kind and weather aspect. They may assume are constituted by a rapid succession of instantaneous events. right? Right, right. You know, a lot of these things are they're out there, you know, just like the earth is forever moving and all that, but we can test it and see what's really going on. It's whether it's your hologram. A lot of this, um, you know, I hate to say it, but a lot of our problems is what we believe. It's not fact, so to speak, I believe. It's what our perception of facts are, or maybe what are facts that we've been given, right? If we're given the facts that NASA, this, and this, then we accept those facts as real and you know, foundational people, then okay. But when we start seeing cracks in our facts and things of that nature, then our whole hologram changes, right? Right. In the heaven of Indra, there is said to be a network of pearls so arranged that if you look at one, you see all the others reflected in it. So a lot of these things, I would say they're derived from, a lot of them are coming from biblical things. So they're coming from, a lot of this comes from something, right? So even these other religions, if you will, they have really stolen a lot from Hebrews. They've stolen a lot from the Israelites. They've stolen from history and then changed it into kind of what they believe, from my perspective, you know, they're what they've done. And they wasn't that original, right? So I have cited in this quotation because it shows that the concept of the universe, at least some. So where are we going with this? Concept of the cosmic egg, them and the egg, man. And well known to scholars familiar with the ancient writings of the Eastern religions, nor are the theories present in this paper at the variance of the essential tenets of the Judeo-Christian stream of thought. Isn't that funny? Right. Yeah, it's all counterfeit, made up. It's something that they did, right? Nor the theories presented in this paper are variants of the essential tenets of the Judeo-Christian stream of thought. The concept, I think that's funny that they would even mention that in the paper, right? Why would you put that there? The concept of visible reality, the created world, as being an emanation of the omnipotent and really divinity, who is completely unknowable in his primary state of being. The absolute at rest in infinity is concept straight of the Hebrew mystical philosophy. Now, see, this is where a lot of things come to, because a lot of things, if you'll look and go back, just like with Moshe, with a lot of these things that was going on, compared to today's philosophies and what they, you know, they would consider that magic, would they not? If you took your stick and walked out to the water and it turned blood red and would they not consider you a magician? Now, so we have to be careful with how they accepted that and where that went, right? Because we know it came from Yahweh. But what I'm getting at, I think, is we have to be very discerning and very cut clear of this is that, this ain't that. And I think that's why a lot of us is veered away. And I veered away from a lot of this most of my life, because don't touch that. Don't get into that. Don't dare. And even people that get into things, and, you know, they will tell you, be careful, or don't do that, or do this. But we have to discern, and we have to be able to know what is right, what is wrong. Because at one point, you know, if the ancients would have seen this guy in a helicopter, they probably would have pulled him out and burned him at a stake, because they would have thought he was a witch, he could fly. But not knowing it was technology, it was using the attributes you've been given, right? So there's a difference in all this, if that makes any sense, or am I just rambling on? But anyway, as beginning of the emanation of omnipotent and omnipresent divinity, and I think that's pretty clear what they're saying, their absolute is here, right? The absolute at rest in infinity, and a concept straight out of the Hebrew mystical philosophy. Given the Christian concept of the Trinity shines through the description of the absolute as presented in this paper. The description of energy totally at rest in infinity fits the Christian metaphysical concept of the Father of the infinite, while the infinite, lost my place there. Here we go. I'm trying to find it. Where was we? Visible reality, the created world as being an amalgamation of the omnipotent. No, it's down further. Total at rest. In infinity fits the Christian metaphysical concept. There we go. Of the Father, while the infinite self-consciousness resident in the energy, providing the motive or the force of will to bring a portion of that energy into motion to create reality, corresponds with the Son. This is so because in order to obtain self-consciousness, the consciousness of the absolute must project hologram of itself and then perceive it. That hologram is a mirror image of the absolute in infinity, still exists outside time and space, but is one step removed from the absolute and is the actual agent of all creation, all reality. Ain't that amazing? Right there in the paper, they're admitting there ain't no Big Bang. The absolute, which we know is Yahweh, created all, right? And the eternal thought or concept of self, which results from this self-consciousness, serves. Uh-oh, what happened there? Oh, is that our missing page? It is. That's our missing page. They got that's amazing. They was talking about the creator, and there's a missing page here. And somebody said they had found it. It's in a book, or it's in a journal, or it's in a paper. I have to find that again. But someone said that this missing page, page number 25, that it's amazing that they're talking about the creator, right? And the page is just gone. They took this out. Even this classified document that we should have page 25, right? I'm sure somebody didn't spill coffee on it and destroy it. Or did they? No. So anyway, they're talking about the absolute, the eternal, and then there it goes. So where's our information? It's the people that I've talked to about it, or the ones I've heard from about this, said that they found this, I believe, in the paper and a magazine that was made about this time. They had put it in there about this, and they let them publish it in a magazine, and that's the reason we preserved it, I guess, or we still have to know what it is. But the other people has requested this page, and they just say it's been destroyed. It's not there. You can't get it. So they're denying that there is this page, or pages, if you will. So this is a document that we have. If you can find it, and I'll try to look it up too. But if you can find it, by all means, we'll go over it again, or go over them pages. Because that's very, very interesting, I think, as well, that all of a sudden they're talking about Yahweh and talking about the omnipresent and the Judean Christians and all this, and then all of a sudden we just lost the page. We can talk about, tell them what we did to these poor people, that we're treating them like lab rats or worse, and probably kill them and bring them from conscious to unconscious and death to life. But, this page here, we just lost that. Anyway, the motivational aspect. It is a step-by-step procedure which involves repetitive practice and the techniques concerned, using each new insight as a means of penetrating further during the next practice session. but the rare process. Yes. Those pages are missing on the official release document that from what I found and from what other people have found, that it's just not there. But like I said, that supposedly in some magazine of New York Times or somewhere there, they have found these missing pages because they have referenced them, and I think went over them in that magazine article of the Gateway Project specifically. So, but the rate of process so much faster with the Gateway approach than it is with the transcendental meditation of other forms of mental self-discipline, and its horizons seem to be much wider than the discipline needed to practice it would seem to be within the means of even the impatient, result-oriented, skeptical pragmatists of our society. Unlike yoga, here we go. I thought yoga was a new thing. Is it that old? Let's go. Unlike yoga and other forms of Eastern mental discipline, Gateway does not require the infinite patience and total personal subservience to and faith in a systems of discipline designed to absorb all the individual energies over most of the lifetime. Rather, it will begin to produce at least minimal results within a relatively short time, such as that enough feedback is available to motivate and energize the individual to continue working with it. So in other words, it sounds like as long as you understand it and you have faith in it and you believe in it, then it works. Makes sense, right? The more that you see, oh, Joe Snuffy done it yesterday and he says, man, I did this. You start having faith in the program and you see it. So then obviously it works quicker. Indeed, the speed in which the individual may expect the progress seems less function than the number of hours spent practicing. The question of the speed of which he or she is able to use insights gained, release anxieties and stresses within both mind and the body. These points of energy blockage seem to provide the principal barriers to achieving the enhanced energy states and focus of the mind needed for rapid progressors. The more comprehensive, the more uptight the individual may be at the onset of more barriers. He or she, notice we're saying he or she now, will initially encounter to achieving a deep or immediate experience, but as the insight begin to come and the blockages begin to dissolve, the way ahead becomes increasingly clear, and the value of Gateway moves from the status of a matter of intellectual assessment to one of personal experience. Conclusion. We're almost at the end here, right? There is a sound, rational basis in terms of physical science parameters for considering Gateway to be plausible in terms of its essential objectives. So it makes you wonder. All these things we see, what is it, like Quantum Leap and all these different shows that you see these people going back and forth, are these just fictional or are these people actually trying this? Are they really trying to do this? I think we see what they're trying to do. Intuitional insights of not only personal, but of a practical and professional nature would seem to be within bounds of reasonable expectations. However, a phased approach for entering the Gateway experience in an accelerated mode would seem to be required if the time needed to reach advanced states of altered consciousness is to be brought within more manageable limits. From the standpoint of establishing an organization-wide, maybe that's what the guy's really in charge of, you think? Exploitation of Gateway's potential. The most promising approach suggested in the foregoing study involves the following steps. Let's see what we got here. Page 25 talks about how the gateway method can assist us in interfacing with the universe and unleashing ourselves from left brain, linear, and quantitative ways of reasoning. All right. Thank you. Begin by using the gateway Hemi sync tapes. Now, I wonder if that's where we got the Hemi engine, the Hemi. Hemi sync tapes to achieve enhanced brain focus and to induce hemisphere. Thank you for sharing that. Then add strong REM sleep frequencies to indicate left brain and deep physical relaxation. So provide hypnotic suggestion designed to enable an individual to induce deep auto-hypnotic state at will. So is there people that's been institutionalized or are institutionalized that they use this on? Use auto-hypnotic suggestion to obtain much enhanced focus, concentration, and motivation in rapidly progressive through Focus 12 exercise. Then repeat steps A and B. Use of the auto-hypnotic suggestion that out-of-the-body movement will occur and be remembered. So, hypnosis, right? Snap your fingers, say you're a chicken, bark, bark, bark. There you go. Now, some people believe this is also in the movies, the little blue strand, the different things that are being put into movies. They believe that's a hypno state, that it's making your mind, for whatever reason, go into a state of that. Just throwing that in there. Repeat step E to achieve facility in gaining out-of-body state under conscious control. Alter hypnotic suggestion to stress ability to consciously control out-of-body movement and maintain it even after the REM sleep state ends, right? Approved for release. Use of multi-focus approach to solve problem and distortion in terrestrial information gathering trips. This approach involves the use of 3 individuals in the out-of-body state, one viewing the target object here in time space, one viewing it at a focus 15 as it slips into the immediate past, and one viewing it at focus 21. So there's 3 different people, it looks like at 3 different stages of their training, right? As it slips from the immediate future. Debrief all 3 and compare data gathered from the 3 points of view. If care is taken to ensure that the 3 all go out of body together in the same environment, their consciousness energy system should resonate in sympathetic oscillation. They can tune in to the same target on different planes, dimensions with greater effectiveness. So, all these 3 levels are trying to meet the same target, right? They're trying to meet the same thing. They're trying to go to the same place. And then we can track this because of the energy, and then they can track it because if they all are separated and they all come back to say this, same thing. Make sense? Encourage pursuit of full self-knowledge by all individuals involved in the foregoing experiments to enhance objectively in out-of-body observation and thinking, and to remove personal energy blockages likely to retard rapid progress. So let's just go on. Be intelligently prepared to react to possible encounters with intelligent, non-corporal energy forms when time-space boundaries are exceeded. All right. Missing pages. Okay. Arrange to have groups of people in Focus 12 state and unite their altered consciousness to build holographic patterns around sensitive areas to repulse possible unwanted out-of-body presences. Encourage more advanced gateway participants to build holographic patterns of successful attainment and rapid progress for advanced colleagues to assist them in progressing through the gateway system. If these experiments are carried through, it is to be hoped that we will truly find a gateway to gateway and to the realm of practical application for the whole systems of techniques, which comprise it. So, what we have here is a whole big bunch of mess, right? Stalking the wild pinium, changing reality.
There's a book right there from the guy, Robert Monroe, Journeys Out of the Body, right there. Written by that Monroe guy they were talking about.
Right.
Man, that was a trip and a half.
Right. Well, I'm going to stop the thing. So shalom.